Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the Sanctuary. I'm your host, Professor C, and today we're going to do some more A and P. Specifically, we are going to look at the zygomatic bones. So, let's do a quickie. Alright, let's check out the cheekbones. The root zygo, you may have seen that in another term in another class somewhere called zygote. Now, what is a zygote? Well, it happens to be the cell that's created when an ovum and a sperm cell meet together. And that helps us understand maybe what the root zygo refers to. It means to connect. And so the zygomatic bone is called the connecting bone because it's simply connecting the face with the skull. And so it's got these bony processes that reach out to other bones, two of them reaching out to cranial bones, to connect it to the face. So we often call these the cheekbones. Sometimes you hear the word zygomatic arch. Okay, there are, of course, some reasons these are here. You have a zygomatic arch, so you can have muscles that attach there that help you, again, do non-verbal communication called facial expression. And they also, to a minimal degree, help you chew a little bit. Again, it's a minimal function, but true. So we also say that it forms the inferolateral. Infero, that means what? Down at the bottom and off to the side of the infraorbital, which is the lower part of the orbital margin. So to be more specific here, without all the fancy words, right here, right, is that infraorbital margin, right? The margin that is on the edge of the orbit. We talked about the supraorbital margin when we went over the frontal bone. And I'll just highlight that to remind us there's the supraorbital margin. So it forms not the entire part. Notice the maxillary bone over here forms the portion of the infraorbital margin. All right, a couple of close-ups here. And really, there's not much to this bone. And I could highlight this piece that sticks up and this piece over here that sticks over that way to the right, and then this little piece over here that sticks off to the left. Those would be the three major bony processes of the zygomatic bone. And then there's a hole in the middle, sort of. It's not quite exactly in the middle. But there's the four parts of the zygomatic bone that are asked about in most courses. So let's do this. The frontal process, okay? So the frontal process of the zygomatic bone is going to be pointing to the frontal bone. So I'll put FP right here. There's the frontal process of the zygomatic bone. The temporal process, for the same reasons, would be reaching for the temporal bone. And here, in an X, I can see there's that zygomatic process, ZP, of that temporal bone. So this must be the temporal process here of the zygomatic bone. And then the third one is reaching out over here to the left. It's reaching over to the maxilla, or the front of the face. So I'm going to call that the maxillary process of the zygomatic bone. So there are the three bony processes. Go ahead and redraw this one in black so it stands out a little bit better. But there they are. And again, if you want to know what these other processes of the bones are, this one here is a zygomatic process. And this over here is a zygomatic process. So there are three zygomatic processes. One from the frontal, one from the maxilla, and one from the temporal. And all these bony processes from the zygomatic bone reach back toward those bones. Now the hole there has a really cool name. You can throw that down on a game of Scrabble and make Grandma pass out. A zygomaticofacial foramen. Okay, that's a mouthful, but that's what that little hole there is called. Sometimes it looks like two holes in models. Sometimes it's missing completely. But zygomaticofacial foramen is what we're going to call it. Now, when you see the bone down below, you may be tempted just to say, hey, this is the MP here, and here's the FP here, and so on. But be careful when you do that, because this bone is flipped around. It's inverted from the position that's on the skull over here. So the trick is you need to see this part of the infraorbital margin. If you can see that portion of the infraorbital margin, you know that this way is actually pointing to, well, we would call the nose or the front of the face. So over there, that's the maxillary process. It's on that side now. You have to look for that curve. That curve is near that maxillary process. And then up top is always the frontal process. It doesn't point down. And then on the other side is the temporal process, TP. And then, of course, there's our friend in the center, the zygomaticofacial foramen. All right, if you enjoyed that one, thanks for watching it, first of all. Check out some more in the series if you want to learn more about bones. See you next time. Bye-bye.